Welcome to those people that may be tuning in from home tonight. Really, I want to share with everyone our draft strategic plan and some of the key focus areas for the school in the coming year. We are starting a 3-year strategic plan this year, and at the moment it's still in draft form as we go through fine-tuning our targets and have presented that to the board this afternoon, but also to share with you some of the priorities that we've got in place this evening and to give you the opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback. So really the school, following its review last year, has identified two key priorities for the next 3 years. We are in a shorter strategic planning cycle to align with our IB evaluations in 2020. The two priorities that we've established based on all of the evidence are around the first priority being literate global citizens, and the second priority being around building a strong learning culture. So they're the two main areas of focus across the two campuses. The outcomes that we're really trying to achieve, and I'm starting with outcomes as opposed to targets, is around improving academic growth of our high-performing students in literacy, so reading and writing, especially across preschool to year 10. And we are really targeting our high-performing students because their growth, and this is an issue here at Gold Creek School, but it's also something that's happening across the whole of the ACT. Our high-performing students do not make the same growth as other students. So that's one of the outcomes we're hoping to achieve in this strategic planning cycle. The next one under this area of literate global citizens is around improving students' critical and creative use of language. Again, our evidence is coming back to us, telling us that things like vocabulary development, language use, not just in written form, but also in spoken form, and being able to analyse text in reading for comprehension, this area of language use needs to be improved. So they're the two, and that's for all students, not high performing, it's just for every student, is to really focus in on this area of language use from P to 10. There's a whole heap of targets and strategies that will come through under that strategic priority, but the outcomes, I think, are what's most important in terms of what we're hoping to achieve over the next 3 years. The other strategic priority around a strong learning culture has 4 outcomes that we're hoping to achieve. The first outcome is around student and staff perceptions in relation to school safety. Our evidence tells us, and we've used the word perception here deliberately because the correlation between the parents, the students and the teachers is really quite different. So the focus really is on students and staff around behaviour management, and so you'll see a lot of things come through over the year and in the next 2 years in that area. Another outcome is around the improved use of technology. And of course, with the rollout of the Chromebooks, really has gotten rid of this equity issue in years 7 to 10, because every student now has a device, which means we concentrate our hardware into the junior campus as well to ensure that every single child at Gold Creek School is engaging at any age with technology. So that's another one that we're hoping to address over the next 3 years. The third outcome to be achieved under this priority is around improving the attendance in years 7 to 10 students. And really looking at all of the systems and structures and interventions that we have in place to increase that attendance overall. We have looked at some target groups within that as well, but that's really focusing on 7 to 10. Our data in terms of attendance in the junior section is not something that we think we really need to tighten. It's quite good, the evidence, but certainly in the 7 to 10, we need to work in that space. Lastly, an outcome is around improving student engagement and the challenge in learning. And again, this sort of comes back to how we teach and really making sure that we have high challenge tasks and learning programs out there that get kids to become thinkers and all of those IB learner profile attributes to I guess, prepare them for a world that we really can't predict, but that 21st century learning capabilities. So that is that outcome that really targets around how we build that learning culture. So there are priorities in our outcomes, and there's a whole heap of targets that are associated with that, and I'm not going to get into that right now. But I wanted to talk to you now about this year and what are those big ticket items that we're going to be focusing on, sort of aligned in with that strategic plan. The first one is around the introduction of positive behaviours for learning. Also, we refer to it as PBL. So if you hear any teacher go PBL, that's what we're referring to, is positive behaviours for learning. It's a framework that supports schools in developing a shared understanding around how we set our culture in school to really engage every student in learning. Behaviour's in there because it will address, as part of that process, the way that we manage behaviour at a school level. And a part of that journey in PBL, Positive Behaviours for Learning, is to work with our community around developing a real shared understanding here at Gold Creek School. So that's one of our big ticket items. We've started the journey, we've had initial training, and the core group of leaders in that space will start rolling this out with our community in the next month or so. It's a long-term journey, somewhere between 2 and 3 years to get through all of the different parts of the framework, but one that we're fairly committed to really improve outcomes for students. The next big ticket item is in this area of literacy, which I talked about in the strategic plan, and we have already invested into an Education Directorate program in early years literacy with Chris Topfner, who's an educational consultant from Victoria. It will end up being a year-long project where she works with both our leadership as well as our teachers, comes into the school, does lesson demonstrations and feedback cycles and many different areas as part of that project. The other one that we are going to be involved in is a proposed secondary school literacy project with Dr. Misty Adenu, who is from University of Canberra, and she is going to be working with a number of secondary schools around improving literacy outcomes, especially in this area of writing for secondary schools. So we're jumping on board with that one as well. Obviously there's a lot of other things in the area of literacy, but there are a few of the big ones that we are getting on board with from a broader Education Directorate point of view. The next one is around our attendance procedures, and our attendance procedures, and this is really targeting this year's 7 to 10 space, is really being supported by the implementation of our student administration system, which has been rolled out this year. It's a new database that basically tracks lesson by lesson, I mean everything, you name it, highly transparent database to know where kids are at, when, making sure that things are logged in terms of meetings that they've got with different teachers or alternate programs. So with the implementation of this new administration system, and with us really focusing in on our procedures, we're hoping that we'll be able to achieve that outcome of improved attendance and obviously the increased engagement of students at school. The last one is really around this challenging and engaging teaching and learning, and we've started this journey through staff professional learning in Week O with Lee Crockett, who's an international consultant from Canada and Japan. He splits between the two countries. He is working with us over the next 3 years as a consultant to really look at how we teach, and changing our methodologies so that we are inquiry based, so that we are teaching 21st century learning skills, and including student voice as part of that teaching and learning process. So we've invested in him for the next 3 years, and he will do 2 face-to-face sessions. We've had one already that was very well received, as well as providing an opportunity to converse with him on online platforms. So our teachers have that consultancy on, I think it's like a 3-week cycle. You can jump online and chat with him directly. So they're really, in terms of our strategic plan, big ticket items for this year. Of course, sitting outside of that, we are always going through facilities upgrade. And thank you to the amazing fundraising of the P&C. We've upgraded a lot of the space in our environment centre, but we are now going through the process of upgrading to make more shaded areas on our junior campus with some more seating as part of that facilities upgrade. And on the secondary campus, we are going through the process. We've had garden upgrades done over the holidays, but we're also having further playground enhancements. We're starting extra seating on the secondary campus, and we're going through a master plan design process for the concourse to add additional seating, some foliage, some greenery to soften the concrete area so that it's a more engaging space for students. We're also doing internal upgrades as part of that process, including recarpeting. We've had blinds done. We've got some significant carpeting happening up on our secondary campus. We've invested in a makerspace on the senior site with 3D printers, laser cutters, a whole variety of different things as part of that ongoing project in that space for this year. So a lot happening. So in terms of where we're heading, where to next, we're at a draft strategic plan at the moment, and we will take feedback on that. So if you have any, please submit it through your P&C, and David will forward that information to me to really get to a point where we're really happy with our plan for the next 3 years. We lock it in, and then I guess do our business and continue to improve our school.
Where do we get a copy of the draft?
Yeah, David will post that through the P&C. I was going to give it out, but I forgot to put the watermark on it with draft, so I'm not going to give it out, but he'll get that posted through the P&C website.
And does the 3-year period start from the beginning of this year?
Yep.
Because we're already sort of quite a bit in, so what's the sort of time frame for actually locking it down?
It'll be locked down by the end of March. And we have gone through consultation. This is not something that I just whip out. A lot of the feedback through the P&C last year, as well as through our staff and through our board, all of that feedback has sort of been pulled together to develop that strategic plan. So David will post it on the website for feedback, and then I'll use that feedback to really lock it in, and that will probably happen by the next board meeting.
Got a question in from online.
Yes, thank you.
With the focus on high-performing students who are in the minority, what efforts will be made to see developing students advance in their learning?
So in terms of ensuring everyone continues to learn, that is just the business that we do all the time. And I know this raised some discussion last year. We have to ensure that our strategic plan has a very sharp and narrow but deep focus in order to really achieve the outcomes that we set. If we try and focus on every single group, then it's much harder to achieve the outcomes. So absolutely, every child in their school will be engaged in learning. They will have differentiated practices to ensure that they're meeting their next steps. What we're targeting is that top group just in the areas of reading and writing to ensure that our top kids keep growing. Our data tells us that our kids that are maybe not as high performing actually grow according to the evidence. It does not mean that mathematics won't get addressed. Of course it's going to be addressed, but in terms of how our school dedicates time, dedicates money, we will be focusing in those areas on the strategic plan that have been identified. Any other questions?
All right, thanks. We're going to end the stream there and we'll
Thank you.
carry on here.